Yes, you can start.
Okay. I have to go a bit to the period before this, because the origins of a cooperative housing initiation or renewal, let's say, of the idea of cooperative housing in Belgrade comes somewhere from 8 years ago, and it has been an initiative of organization, or of that at that time not really yet official organization, called Who Builds the City, or Ko Gradi Grad in Serbian. When end of 2012 we called for made an open call for people to join us in finding a possible solution to very high prices of attaining or getting an apartment on the market, and also housing rental. And the origin of organization Who Builds the City is somewhere from the end of the previous decade, beginning of 2010s. In 2010, we organized an event which was called Who Builds the City, and this was the start of this organization. It was, let's say, it grew out from two strands. One was the many smaller or larger occurrences of violation of rights of citizens and taking over the ground for big developments in the city. And on the other hand, there was a rise of different citizens' initiatives to confront this kind of urban development, new liberalization of urban development in the region, actually, not in Belgrade or in Serbia. By 2012, we realized that we were very good in connecting a number of initiatives locally in Serbia, to give them a floor, to bring their ideas, to connect them, but that there were a number of issues coming up which were maybe not addressed. And one of the most important, which was very difficult for many of these groups and personally for people to address, was the issue of housing.
But this was the one which maybe was the closest to everyone, and also the biggest one somehow to challenge. So the thing which actually no one really dared to step into.
And then in 2012, as I said, we made this open call. And this was an interesting moment because we made it in such a way that it was provocative. The call was inviting people to jointly rethink how housing can be resolved, and also to take somehow matter into their own hands. And we were in a way provocative by saying, like, is there a way to get to housing and not to wait for your grandparents or parents to die and to go to heaven, and can we do something before, to resolve housing issue without having to wait for such a heavy sort of moments in life. About 40 people came to this first event in the Cultural Center X, and we were just looking at each other. We didn't know, many of these people we really never met before. Some of the people were already obviously people that we knew. And we started by asking everyone to give first motivations, why they came, and the second was to give reserves, why they think that it would be difficult to do something that we started. And at that point, we had no particular prescribed idea of what we want to achieve. We basically came with the open, maybe with the methodology, how to do it and how this dissecting would go, but not with in mind the picture of what is that we would be striving towards, or what we would like to achieve. And we spent this first year, the year after 2013, in this, what we called working tables, which was usually Friday afternoon, Friday evening, with a sort of lecture input by someone, and then whole Saturday with also lunch and eating together in thinking through what this would mean on particular situation here locally. So this was happening from a month to month, and it was a very intense and very interesting. And in this way, we opened a number of issues. And then finally, we also asked a group of lawyers to work with us to think what is the right legal, let's say, framework in which what we have collectively come up could the best fit. And that's where they came up actually with the cooperative way of organizing as the way to go on with. There was one interesting moment somewhere in the beginning of 2014. There was an architectural competition, which was a call to design. It was called Mild Home, which was standing for Modular, Intelligent, Low-Cost, Do-It-Yourself, something in this direction, housing. And it was a call of one of the local municipalities of Belgrade. And the call was to develop a neighborhood which was to house about 500 people. So what we decided to do is, as that was just after this whole year that we spent of thinking about the model, we decided to respond to this call and make a proposal which would somehow materialize all our ideas into that possible neighborhood. So we did this, we did enter this competition. It was really a great energy, and we have delivered the whole concept, actually, not just of the buildings, but also how this group would be organized. We even made some financial calculations, and we were one of the winners of this competition. And we were thinking, wow, okay, cool, because one of the main issues for us was that we were hoping through this to get to a connection with public authorities. So not just to win the competition, but with, if we would win, to enter into a dialogue. And that whole year following this was a very, actually our disillusionment into the real and serious intent of public authorities to involve in something like this. And that was the point where we realized that probably this direction of thinking with public authorities, it was not just this, it was a number of things, would probably not give much at the moment, and would not probably give much for the pilot project that we wanted to realize. And that was the point when we started to think that maybe we have to rethink of how do we want to organize ourselves. In the beginning, we were an informal group. We had no any legal structure, and until 2016, actually, Who Builds the City was not a legal organization. Then in the beginning of 2016, we decided to register a non-governmental organization association, and through this channel, we were on one hand, we were able to get the finance for some of these activities. It's not a lot of finance, but some, so that it's not completely volunteer work. And we managed, let's say, to emancipate, or to become independent, let's say, from the cultural center, which was covering, let's say, our operations until that point. And then another important thing which happened is that at the start of 2019, so 3 years later, we decided to register housing cooperative. And housing cooperative is called Smarter Building, or Pametnija Zgrada in Serbian. There is an origin, interesting, I think, origin of the whole thing, because we were thinking at that time, there was this, and still a hype of smart building or a smart house. And we were thinking that this, what we are trying to do, has to be smarter than that, and smarter in a sense of having also societal side as the societal and this collective endeavor as its main character. Although today people still have a confusion, is it smarter or smart or whatever? So we are not sure if it is a very good name, but at that time we thought that it was an interesting twist to it. So there is a cooperative which was initiated by 6 of us. The difference between the two organizations is not yet completely clear to us, but it is getting clearer and clearer. So Who Builds the City is more like a research unit facilitation organization which connects people, and the cooperative is meant to be the implementer of the pilot project, also the body through which we collect finance, for instance, to buy land. So one of the things is that we started to build up this fund for buying a plot of land, because we have figured out that public land will be very difficult to get. So we probably have to go to buying a plot of land. And that this will be the organization that future inhabitants are going to join. what we are intending to develop is a cooperative housing of non-for-profit and non-speculative nature. And so the intent is that the building that we will make is collectively owned through the cooperative, so that no one is individual owner of the apartments. This is the major difference between housing cooperatives that existed here before and what we are trying to do. So this kind of model didn't exist in Serbia and in the region, I think, at all until now. There is, so this is a new, let's say, paradigm for this context. Another, maybe, and then to speak a little bit about the scale of the project, we are intending to develop something which is for about 55 people or about 19-20 units of various sizes. We are thinking of, let's say, regular apartments and more co-housing situations. The combination, co-living, yeah, the combination of living and working spaces, and about 15% of collective spaces in this. So far, we have made a preliminary design even twice. And but of course the real project will depend on the plot that we will get in the end and the exact group of people.
Another thing was the whole financial background of this, because we were trying to enter a quite new housing format here, which hasn't been practiced to date. So we wanted to make sure that the whole financial understanding of how this housing works, and not just as a one-time investment, but as a place where people for 30, 40 years will unfold their lives, how that would work. So we wanted to understand, how does such a building perform for its community over such a long period. And we spent quite a lot of time on figuring that out. And we even made open source software to do such calculations from, let's say, the moment of setting up a community, investing in such a building, to the long-term operational management of such a building. Right from the beginning, we have been thinking that whatever comes out of this should be open source, and this should be available to other communities in Belgrade, in Serbia, but not just that, in the region, because we understand that throughout the region, a lot of groups and people are facing similar questions, similar issues, similar challenges. So this, you know, like being open about that, about what we find, making things open source has been like very important.
And maybe just to say that this calculation software that we made has been available already for the entire MOBA network, and is also available on MOBA's website. So it has been developed by our team, but it has been tested and used already by entire MOBA network. And that is the, let's say, the method through which we also compare the projects. So all the projects of all the partners of MOBA are, let's say, scrutinized through this model in a sense that we can compare the costs. What is the percent, to what kind of rental level do we aim compared to the market level, and things like this.
Well, what we realized is that it's difficult to get first of all, the sort of like seed funding, the very first funding going. So if you have, like, if you do a project like this and you have already certain pots of funding in place, it's much easier for others to come on board.
Well, for the research work, we have been receiving funding from external organizations, so this was not paid by members, and we also hope that we can in that way also complete the pilot project, so that all the things, even hopefully related to the design and the implementation of the project from that respect, would be done as a donation. So in that way, that about 10% of the costs of the building we hope to cover in this way. Then our plan is that future inhabitants invest about 10%. it really all depends, but in ideal world, let's say that this would be the model.
But this is for the pilot project, and the question is whether that is possible for any further project.
Yes.
So it's more likely that their residents would have to pay, let's say, 20% share for the apartments.
Yes, and then in terms of further financing, we would like and hope that we can get to about 30% through MOBA fund, which is the fund that MOBA is building for its members, which would be coming from various sources under specific conditions, which still have to be defined, but which would give a possibility to get this funding without having already a bank and things like this, and that up to 50% would be from commercial banks. I mean, it would be great if we would have an ethical bank, but no, there is no yet such a bank here in Serbia. One of the MOBA partners is ZEF, which is a cooperative for ethical finance, and also member of MOBA. And ZEF is developing an international cooperative bank, which will hopefully operate also in Serbia and can give a loan, but this is a long-term project and I'm not sure that it will work for our pilot project. So we would have to rely on commercial banks. There are some signs that there are particular banks interested to work with us also on the level of MOBA. Yeah, we made a calculation of how much the building would cost and what percentage of let's say compared to the rental market this would be for the inhabitants. So we are counting at about 60% of the rental level on the market for the people that would be living in this building. Of course, this all will have to be tested later on when we really come up to the location and the construction and all of that. But this is what we, so far on the test design, which we have made, are thinking of. And the pilot building is somewhere under €1.5 million cost. That is the projection so far. We realized already quite early on that it is very important to build these coalitions locally and with also like-minded people and organizations, because this model of housing cannot stand on its own. I mean, it has to be seen in the context, wider context, and that it is a potential solution for one part of population, is not for everyone. We have been quite active in the field of voicing at least our opinions on the, for instance, a law on housing, which was changed in the end of 2016. Mm-hmm. So we have organized also, let's say we gathered a group of other organizations to collectively comment on this. And one of the things that we, very small things, but one of the things that we managed at that point was to make housing cooperatives, which have a non-for-profit status, possible deliverers, let's say, of non-for-profit housing in Serbia, and that legally government could support this. So far, there has been no any further thinking and work on this, but at least it's there, stands in the law as a possibility. And then what has been interesting is that during last year, there was a process of making a housing strategy of the city of Belgrade, and there was an expert team, external expert team invited to make this proposal. And in this process, they organized a number of focus groups in which they invited also from civil sector organizations to comment or to give proposals. And within this context, we have been invited to speak about this non-for-profit part of housing in a number of sessions, and also as a result, or as our fear that our voice would not be heard, we have decided to form an informal sort of collaboration with, or coalition with a number of organizations which are dealing with housing from various aspects here in Belgrade. we have started something which is called the Movement for Housing Equality, and it comprises now 5 organizations, of which Who Builds the City is one. Other organizations come from the domain, for instance, of work with vulnerable groups. One organization which has been developing housing specifically for Roma population and social housing in underprivileged conditions. A group which is an organization which is dealing more with planning issues, and one activist organization which is defending right to housing. So together we made our own vision on what housing strategy in this domain should be to the city. We sent them also, they incorporated some parts of this into the plan. We have made a common manifesto and a common sort of a program, and it will be very soon also made available, even in English, online. We decided to go public with it, also to inspire others to join us. It is a sort of a call for joining forces. It's maybe too early to talk about it, but one of our interests, and now there is a possibility potentially for that, is to work in one of the suburbs of Belgrade, which has this character of informal development. So I was mentioning in the beginning that there was a lot of illegal construction, and basically this is still going on, and a lot of city expansion on its edges in this way. And these areas are lacking a lot of amenities. I mean, there is maybe a school, but that's about it. One potential, and I think could be very inspiring idea is, what if you come with such a collective project in such a neighborhood? What kind of additional programs and activities can this add? And we are right now starting with one of our members, is also a member of another community, which brings the potential to connect to such a neighborhood with also activities that they're doing there with the local school. And the majority of population of this neighborhood is Roma people. So it is in this very specific context, it could have plus additional value to what just housing or living and working condition for the inhabitants would have.
As much as you construct a building, you construct a community which is going to take on their lives, let's say, in such a building. I think that's like it's super interesting to look at that.
I think what is also interesting to add that we have in the meantime developed a very nice collaboration with the university from the city of Kragujevac, that's here in Serbia. From their department, which is dealing with energy and environment, and they are great supporters in looking and thinking further in this energy and environment part. And even through the research which they made, which we together, let's say, made, we came across a potential company that could deliver technology for something like this, and that is. We had the first talks, and they're very interested to team up on making a pilot project. So there is a lot of interesting, let's say, subsystems, let's say, coming together, including the MOBA and the MOBA fund, which is under development, which we hope to put together. One of the stuff which is happening meanwhile is that we have started together yet with another group of organizations, a newsletter. So we are each month bringing something from the cooperative housing and collaborative housing issues to general audience. So there is a list of about 5,000 people which is receiving this newsletter, and the idea is slowly, let's say, spreading around.